Welcome to Redefining Real Estate. I'm Rylan.
And I'm Morgan. Expect a mix of education, humor, and authentic conversation as we explore all things real estate.
Let's jump into today's episode.
These are the top 5 real estate myths. Let's get into it.
All right, so we have 5 myths here. Number 1, it is always better to buy than rent.
Yeah, I feel like most realtors obviously are going to tell you that it's always a good time to buy. You should be buying since the time you were in the womb.
Yes, exactly.
If only we could have all done that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's not really a perfect time for people to buy. If you knew when it was the perfect time, then you would have done that already, right? Like the people who bought during COVID are feeling pretty good about themselves right now, although most people were freaking out and like, oh, we shouldn't do that, right? But now they've got a ton of equity. So I know, personally, I've had a lot of clients, especially recently, that have struggled with this idea of like, well, how do I know when it's the perfect time to buy? I'm renting right now. And if you don't have a major life change that's going on, then I think it's really more about when is the perfect time to buy for you, not in the market.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, so, I mean, something for people to take into consideration is like, are you financially stable? Mm-hmm. Do you have any sort of savings built up? I mean, obviously, we want everyone to have an emergency savings.
In an ideal world, of course.
You never know what will happen as a homeowner. Yeah. Especially if you're buying an older home. So it's important to have some savings on hand and feel good about your situation with your career and your job.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's hard to time the market. It's just like trading stocks. Like if everyone knew when the perfect time to do it was, like everyone would be doing it. You just have to get into the game as soon as you are comfortable doing so.
Yeah, I agree.
And then going from there. But I'm curious, have you had some of the same discussions with your clients?
Yeah, I think a big one that kind of comes to mind is I was on the phone with a single mom of 2. Mm-hmm. She's currently renting right now for around $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
So she was wanting to look into buying, and it wasn't really an option for her, so she kind of just stuck with the rental route.
Yeah.
So with that, we kind of like ran some numbers, and she kind of found out that $1,000 is her like absolute max, so obviously that's not going to cover a mortgage payment month to month. So in her situation, I'm not going to try and like push a hard sale because like it really just didn't make sense, and I didn't want to lead her into like false hope,
Yeah, I mean, because that's the hard part too, is like obviously the American dream is buying a home and the white picket fence with your family, but the numbers, if they don't make sense, then they don't make sense. And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid to do, is like talk with a mortgage lender about what those numbers look like, because then they either find out they can do it, or their dreams are crushed and maybe they need to put things on hold and create a different plan. But I feel like empowering people to have that information is the most important part. Yeah,
because I think that the longer they're under the impression that they're good to go or they're not good to go, the worse it can be for them on the end. So yeah, working with that lady just for a very brief moment was pretty beneficial for her. Like it just gained mental clarity for her like instantly. And she's still working on her credit. She's hopefully expecting a promotion the next year, maybe-ish. So still like it's not just completely out of the cards for her, but right now it's just not the time for her. Like you're mentioning, it's not the perfect time.
Right.
So I think in that scenario, it's not better to buy than rent for her. So
for sure. And I think people too who are very fiscally conservative out there, for all of y'all listening, you don't have to save up a huge amount of money, like we talked about being financially stable. But
very true.
One of the things that we get a lot too, I guess our second myth here is
myth number 2.
Yes, myth number 2, you need a 20% down payment. So there are so many different options out there for different loan types depending on your financial situation with your credit and your income. But most of the buyers that we see that are moving from renting to buying are using an FHA loan, which only requires 3.5% down.
Right, exactly.
And there are other options out there depending on your situation that could be even lower on the down payment amount. Like if you are a veteran and qualify for a VA loan, then you could potentially do 0% down, which is amazing. Or if you're open to looking in more rural areas where the population is a lot smaller, there are options with the USDA loan that is also 0% down. But keep in mind, like, you still need to have some money on hand, right? Like
always.
We can't go from having no money saved up to buying a house because you just don't know what's going to be coming down the line for you.
Yeah. And this is one that I actually was kind of talking about earlier, conventional route, going lower than 20%, 10%, 5%, 3%.
Yes.
Something I actually wasn't too familiar with. So do you care to elaborate on that one as well?
Yeah. So a lot of our clients who are using these lower percentage down payments with conventional loans, they're going to have a higher credit score. And so typically when you are comparing FHA versus conventional for your first home, it makes more sense to go FHA because there's different benefits with the loan package.
Yeah.
But for conventional, I know like for myself personally, when I bought my second home, because I didn't sell my first home and get the equity out of it, I did a 5% down conventional loan. And it ended up being more beneficial for the location I was buying in my particular situation. So I see that a lot too, is like, you know, especially in a market where maybe you want to show that you're more qualified than other buyers and it's a competitive buyer's market.
Right.
You know, if you qualify for a conventional loan, you most likely qualify for an FHA loan, but it's not the same the other way around because it depends more on your credit and financial profile.
Yeah, without a doubt. Kind of like a part 2 of 20% down payment is you must have perfect credit to get a mortgage. I have a client that actually was trying to become completely debt-free before he wanted to get pre-qualified. Talking through that, he kind of started to realize you don't have to be debt-free in order to get pre-approved. Yes. So he was actually kind of able to get into the process a little bit sooner.
Yeah, I hear that all the time as well from first-time home buyers. It's like, well, I want to pay off X, Y, and Z, which there definitely may be some value in paying off things.
Of course.
But you don't have to be debt-free. I know so many people who own homes who have student loans, who have vehicle loans, who have credit cards. Like, they have all the debt. Not saying that should be your particular situation, but just know that you don't have to be debt-free. It just depends on how the numbers work out, because typically how the mortgage lenders are going to qualify you is they're going to look at your monthly debt versus your monthly income. So even if you have, say you're a doctor, right, and you have like $200,000 in student loans, like that doesn't mean you can't qualify for a home.
Exactly.
You know, there's actually like specific loan products for you out there if you're a doctor. So
if you're a doctor.
So yeah, that's something that we come across all the time. And then same with credit scores. Like, you don't have to have an 800 credit score. A lot of people we're like in the lower 600s, lower to mid 600s.
Yep.
I think typically 620 is the target that most lenders are looking for people to reach if you're putting the least amount down.
I would say 620. That's the number that I keep hearing from lenders, is like kind of like the bottom line. Around there, you know. Right.
And the hard part is too, like, a lot of people don't want to talk to a mortgage lender because they're like, whoa, like, I'm not ready to like talk to someone yet. But they use their own calculation to get your credit score for when you're getting qualified. You can't just go on Credit Karma and be like, oh yeah, this is my credit score, I'm good to go. Like, you have to check all the bureaus, you have to check everything out first. And that's why speaking to a mortgage lender has so much value, because they can tell you specifically what you need to be looking at.
Right. And it's not like any sort of like huge commitment, you know, it's just having a conversation with them is super beneficial. You know, it's not like you're getting locked into anything, but yeah, trying to discuss Credit Karma with clients is always a fun topic. Just because, you know, it's marketed as a super accurate, you know, credit score, evaluation, but yeah, I've ran into that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So number 3 on our list of myths is that a home inspection is not necessary.
Oh. I could not like disagree with that more. Oh wait, no. Yeah. It is very necessary. It has you have to do an inspection. I mean, it's not like required, but sure, you know. There's so much going on in homes that like you may not see whenever you're viewing 15 of them, you know? And I mean, a professional inspector can always find something going on, you know?
Yeah. And I was telling you earlier, like even my clients that have done new construction homes, like I still recommend a home inspection, because number one, you basically just create a list for the builder to go down and address anything that's on the list. But the second thing is like, there's still going to be things on there, which most people don't realize. They're like, oh, it's new. Like I don't need any type of inspection. Yeah. But no, you do need a home inspection. You want to have that documentation, you know, for the future. Like I said, you can give this list to the builder to address all these things. But at the same time, like, say something happens between the time you go under contract and closing, you want to be able to do an inspection to where you have documentation of the different aspects and systems of the home, versus after you move in. I mean, everybody knows you get a warranty here in Texas with new construction. So it's super beneficial to have all of that documentation, because then at month 11, when your warranty from the builder is about to expire, the workmanship warranty, you can then have a home inspector come back and do another inspection and verify that everything is still the same, or if anything has changed and needs addressing, that they can get that addressed from the builder for free for you. Yeah,
you're exactly right. I mean, you have to know exactly what you're walking into, you know, like you never want any surprises, especially after closing day. You're all excited, and then, you know, you're going to sleep and you look up and there may be like a crack or something in the ceiling. So yeah, it's definitely highly recommended to get a home inspection.
Yeah, and something else for everyone to consider that is going to be buying here in the near future is home inspections. While they're not required, we both and everybody on our team certainly recommends everybody get one. And when you go through the process of getting a home inspection, you're going to find out so much information about the home. Obviously, you can't fix everything unless it's new construction. It's not realistic to know that you can fix everything. Right, but in that process, it can be pretty emotional and pretty overwhelming. I think it's important to understand that if it's not a new construction home, that the idea should be, okay, if everything on this list was addressed, then it would be basically a new home, right? Which is not our expectation most of the time when we're looking at a home that's 10, 20, 30 plus years old. So just a matter of finding that balance of what everyone is going to be comfortable with.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Okay, number 4, tax assessment does not equal market value in our, you know, Texas, Brazos County area.
Yeah, so I get clients all the time who are looking at the Brazos CAD website, and they're like, oh my God, like we want to look at this home, but it's assessed for X, Y, and Z. And sometimes the value is way below like what it actually should be. Sometimes it's above where it should be. And so what I tell my clients is, you have to remember the Brazos County Tax Office does not have access to any of the sales records. They only get access to sales data whenever a buyer discloses that to them. So like someone will buy a home, they'll get something in the mail that looks super official from the county saying that they should disclose how much they paid for it, but that is not required. You do not have to do that. So please do not do that if you have bought a home.
I've heard of people that put like $1 on there or something, or just like say if they bought it for $200,000, they just put like $130 for fun. And they're like, I don't know, I just sent it in, so whatever.
I will tell you, if you put less than what it's assessed for, you will have to show proof that you paid that much. So you have to bring a copy of your sales contract to prove that. Because I did have to deal with that a couple of years ago when I purchased my duplex. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, again, like this is not an indication of how much a home should be selling for. If you have lived in a neighborhood that is older, where there's not a lot of movement, it's very well established and not many people are buying and selling in that neighborhood. It's more likely that the assessments are going to be lower because no one is disclosing their sales data, right? And hopefully people are protesting their property taxes every year to try to keep the taxes down. But at the end of the day, you know, even though it doesn't tell you exactly what the market value is, that is something that we would have to manually calculate for you. It does give you a good ballpark amount of like, okay, well, if you want to offer over sales price, if the tax assessment is higher than what it's listed at, then that may give you a good indication of like, okay, well, we probably won't have issues with the appraisal, but always talk to your realtor or real estate professional that you're working with.
Yeah, for sure. I had a property in Iola that was listed for like $500,000 or something, and the people that were interested in it like took a screenshot of like the county appraisal district like assessed value, and they're like, oh, like this is way overpriced, like this is ridiculous, all that stuff. So actually getting in there, like doing a proper like CMA and like adjusting everything, turns out, I mean, they were a little high, but not what they were like, you know, thinking. I think the difference was like over $100,000.
Yeah, that's what they were thinking.
Yeah, so they were like, oh, these people are trying to like scam someone and all that stuff. So through some actual like research, like the price was pretty accurate, but having to kind of work through the fact that, you know, this price is going to be different than the assessed value just because of, you know, like what we just mentioned, like they don't have access to sales data. They have different ways of finding that number. So yeah, they were a lot more at ease after that, but you know, so definitely something to be aware of without a doubt.
Yes, for sure. And our last myth on the list is that some realtors only have access to certain properties within the area for their buyers.
That's a good one. I don't run into this too often, but obviously a few people on our team have recently.
Yes.
They were under the impression that like you can only look at like a couple homes within the area, you know, and I think that's a very, you know, becoming a more common misconception.
Yeah, I think where it stems from is a lot of people who are older in age may have seen how real estate was practiced previously before we had internet.
Okay.
Or, you know, when the internet was first starting to, I guess, pop off with like real estate sales, right? Because before Zillow and Realtor.com, like imagine how did people look at real estate? They went directly to an agent. And the agent opened up a book, printed out all the current listings and was like, okay,
here
like
we go.
Here's what's available, right? But obviously that's not the case these days. If you are an agent licensed in an area and have access or a membership with a local MLS, then you can show homes and assist buyers to purchase any home within the MLS, regardless of whether your brokerage or your firm has that listing.
Right.
The only time that, you know, you may have access to certain properties that other agents don't have access to is when you have one that's coming soon. You already have a listing agreement signed.
Right. Yeah. Like a pocket listing or something, or coming soon.
Right. But even coming soons, you're required to put those within the MLS for other brokers to see. So there's really not this idea of like, oh, well, if I work with this one agent, I'm going to get these exclusive things. Like, yes, depending on what agent you use, obviously we all have different experiences and different value that we can share on different types of properties, but it's not going to be about, oh, they're going to find me this off market type of property every single time.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree.
Okay, well, that was the top 5 myths that we have encountered in real estate. If you guys have any other questions for us, feel free to find us on social media, and we will see y'all on the next one.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. We hope you found something useful, or at least had a good time listening.
Yeah, if you enjoy this episode, feel free to subscribe or share it with someone who might enjoy this content.
And if you have any questions or topics you want us to cover, reach out to us on Instagram. Everything will be linked below for you.